When I got to Denver, Mr. Catalyst and I continued messaging, and I stayed in the basement of my ex-girlfriend's home and her husband's home. The reason why I mention that is I had a room. I love the room. There was no windows and it was totally dark when you shut the door. Completely dark, no light. And to me that's a bit of an analogy of how I felt exchanging this type of energy with Mr. Catalyst. It was very dark but alluring. And we had another messaging session while I was there. I remember I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Had been really tired, so I spent some time with them. We went out to dinner. When I got home, I fell asleep. I had thrown in some laundry, and I woke up the next day around 4 a.m. and got the laundry out and was messaging with him because he was at work. So it must have been maybe 2 a.m. on the East Coast. And here's another thing that I look back on. A lot of times when we were messaging, this guy was at work. I mean, like, who has the time to do all this messaging at work? I know when I was at work, there's no way I had this time. And that's not to say I believe he held the job that he said that he held, but that's a red flag in and of itself if you have that time to go back and forth with someone that much while you're at work. And I realize that happens a lot. That's not unusual. So we had another intense emotional messaging session, and it was turning sexual, but no sexting or anything. And it was early in the morning, and I was just joking about doing laundry, and it seemed like we were really getting along, of course, via text, which is very different than in person. He told me about a woman that he had dated from our high school. I didn't know her. I don't know. My guess is she was probably younger. We continued to exchange personal information, and I felt like emotionally we were getting closer. And we wrapped it up around 6 a.m. Denver time because I just wanted to get a few hours of sleep before starting my day. And I asked him at the end of those 2 hours, I said, I don't want to be getting ahead of myself, but do you have a girlfriend? Because if you have a girlfriend, I need to take a step back from this. And his response was, I don't have a girlfriend. If I did, I wouldn't be so flirty. And even though he said that, I knew that he was probably sleeping with somebody. And if I could go back in time, the question I would ask is not, do you have a girlfriend, but are you sleeping with another woman? And knowing what I know now, if he was, I would have immediately ceased contact, period. Now, there's nothing to say that he would have told me the truth, right? Plenty of people lie, but Mr. Catalyst really is the king of half-truths. And that's how a lot of people justify things to himself. So, no, he didn't have a girlfriend, which was the truth in his head. But yes, he was sleeping with someone, but that's not the question that I asked, right? In my head, I thought, well, who am I to judge him for sleeping with another woman? Like, we haven't even met up in person. So I'm not... It's not up to me to tell him what to do, which is the truth, right? But what I thought erroneously is maybe if we meet up and we hit it off, he might decide not to pursue relations with other women. Or perhaps that's a conversation we'll have in the future. I wanted to have as much freedom as possible, and I wanted him to have as much freedom as possible because The logical part of my brain was like, we don't even know each other. So how am I going to ask him, is he sleeping with another woman? And, oh, by the way, don't do that. That makes no sense. But here is where my reasoning was faulty, and I will never make this mistake again. If someone is in their 50s and they are sleeping with another woman or one or more women, in this case, I believe it was one woman at a time for him, but I could be wrong, and they are messaging, in this case with someone like myself, that is not a habit that they're going to change. It's highly unlikely. I understand that this goes on all the time, and this goes on with people in their teens, their 20s, their 30s, their 40s on up, okay? I realize that this has become a universal phenomena, and that's why I'm addressing it now. I do believe that for younger people, they do have the propensity to change, although I certainly would not wait around for that to happen. After I did research on this, I just realized the people that have this habit, and it's not going to change. But at the time, in 2019, I was nowhere near as knowledgeable as I am today. And I said, surely if we meet up and hit it off, and we continue this, then I will address it. But I did not think that that time and place was the time to address this. He had communicated to me that basically he was single and available, and that he would not be flirting with me if he was not single and available. And I'm sure in his head he believed that. The other reason why I extended this courtesy to him is because in 2019, I had worked in US healthcare for 20 years, almost 20 years. I worked with some very phenomenal people. I have not found that caliber of person since I left healthcare. And I'm not saying that the people that I have met outside of healthcare are all dark, evil, unethical. No. But what I am going to tell you is the people that I worked with were, if there's a bell curve distribution, they were at the far end of the bell curve. And I really miss them. And that's the spirit that I was coming at when I was communicating with this person. I just assumed that he was of the same caliber of the people that I was used to associating with, and he was not. And that was a lesson learned for me. But the other thing is, like, who am I to say? Because when I was in Farmington, let's bump it to the spiritual level, which I'm responsible for. Here I am slighting these people because of their religious beliefs, right? Like, who am I to do that? So it's not like I was all that much better than Mr. Catalyst, but it was just in a different way, right? So I'm well aware of that, that I have my own shortcomings as well. I said this in another video, but I'm going to say it here too, to give you a take-home message. Don't message too much up front if you're going to meet up with a person face-to-face. And I know that sounds like a basic. And going back to that time, there isn't anything I would change, because I learned a lot from this situation, and it hasn't repeated itself. And as a matter of fact, the things that I've learned, I've been able to apply to other situations, and I've stopped them way sooner. I now, one of the things I learned is I can look at a particular situation and I can see what it's going to be down the road. And before it gets to that point, I just stop. I stop it. And I'm really grateful that I have that ability now. I'm not saying that I didn't then, but it's much sharper and clearer now because of what I went through with Mr. Catalyst. So at the time, since I didn't have anything to compare this situation to, I thought I was still okay, that I really wasn't too attached to this person, when the reality is I was, okay? But he was not nearly as attached to me. I was wading deeper and deeper into the water without realizing it, and I was about to get in over my head.